been a long day after work. You get home, tired, and a little bit hungry too, so you decide to pop a little bit of food into the microwave. After that's done, you take it back to your bedroom where you sit and eat, quietly reflecting on the day's work. Maybe you turn on a show, and then eventually you decide that you're ready for sleep. You turn off the TV and you start to settle into your bed. As you're about to drift to sleep, you hear this walking sound coming from outside. You brush it off as just some pedestrian walking the sidewalks late at night. There's many people that normally do this, you think to yourself. But then you hear your door slowly open. But you're completely shocked in terror when they open your door and turn on the lights. Hi, I'm Mr. Encounter, and today we're going to be diving into the story of Richard Ramirez. It was the summer of 1985 in Los Angeles. The city gleamed under the California sun, its freeways humming, neon signs flickering in Hollywood, surfers riding waves along the coast. But under the surface, a shadow moved, quiet, patient, predatory. That shadow had a name: Richard Ramirez. Richard Ramirez was born in El Paso, Texas in 1960. His childhood was steeped in chaos. His father was a violent man who rarely showed affection. His mother was strict, deeply religious, and often ignored the darker currents in her son's behavior. Ramirez's cousin, a Vietnam veteran, introduced him to images of death and violence, photographs of dismembered bodies that fascinated the young boy. By adolescence, Ramirez was already drawn to crime. He stole, lied, and experimented with drugs. By his 20s, he had left home, drifting across the southwestern United States. He lived on the fringes, odd jobs, petty theft, and an ever-deepening obsession with death, sex, and Satanism. Some psychologists describe him as a thrill killer, driven less by vengeance or ideology, and more by the pure exhilaration of control and fear. He was meticulous in his methods, yet unpredictable in choice of victims, making him one of the most terrifying serial predators of his time. June 1984 marked the start of Ramirez's killing spree. He entered the apartment of 79-year-old Jenny Vincow in Los Angeles. The attack was brutal: rape, mutilation, and murder. The crime scene was grotesque, a terrifying introduction to the man who would come to dominate the city's headlines. Over the next year, Ramirez escalated his attacks. Unlike many serial killers, he had no discernible pattern. Victims ranged from young couples to elderly men and women. Attacks occurred in apartments, suburban homes, and even in multi-story residential buildings. Weapons were different every time: guns, knives, hammers, cords, and sometimes his hands. He often left pentagrams scrawled on walls, forcing victims to swear allegiance to Satan. But his acts were not ritualistic in a religious sense. They were performative, meant to terrify. He wanted his victims to know fear before death. Each story was a nightmare. Some victims survived and later testified. Bill Carnes and Inez Erickson were a married couple awakened by a shadowy figure entering their bedroom. Ramirez fired his gun and assaulted them both. Carnes survived with gunshot wounds while Erickson endured sexual assault but lived. Mary Cannon, an elderly woman, was attacked in her apartment. Ramirez forced her to lie on the floor, demanding money and jewelry, then scrawled a pentagram on her dresser before fleeing. Jay and Susan A. were a young couple in their apartment. Ramirez entered through an unlocked window, tying the couple up, stealing valuables, and leaving messages of terror. Susan later described the fear as, quote, "a shadow that never leaves you," end quote. These survivors were a testament to his randomness and unpredictability. Some were attacked multiple times before Ramirez moved on. No home felt safe. No city block could guarantee safety. By mid-1985, Los Angeles was gripped by terror. Newspapers were filled with his crimes. People started installing bars on windows, carrying guns to bed, and walking streets with flashlights. Public gatherings at night became tense. Families whispered prayers before sleep, unsure if they'd wake in the morning. Media coverage fueled hysteria. TV anchors described crime scenes in chilling detail. Radio hosts warned listeners not to open doors to strangers. Ramirez's infamy grew, feeding both fear and fascination. Law enforcement faced extraordinary challenges. Ramirez's attacks crossed multiple jurisdictions, from Los Angeles to the San Francisco Bay Area. Coordination was poor, and forensic technology was still developing. But Ramirez wasn't entirely careful. Investigators noted a distinct Avia sneaker footprint at one of the crime scenes, as well as fingerprints in stolen vehicles, eventually matched to Ramirez. They also found a stolen car he left in a neighborhood alley, providing additional clues. Gradually, the pieces fit together. The man terrorizing the city was Richard Ramirez. It was now August 31st of 1985. Ramirez, unaware of his notoriety, stepped off a bus in East LA. A local recognized him instantly. Shouts erupted. Soon, dozens were chasing him. He tried to escape, attempting to steal a car, but the mob overpowered him. Police arrived to find Ramirez bloodied, battered, and finally in custody. The arrest was a citywide relief. Families breathed easier, though the trauma lingered. The trial began in 1989. Ramirez's courtroom behavior was shocking, shouting, quote, "Hail Satan," end quote, grinning at survivors, and flashing pentagrams on his hand. He mocked the proceedings and reveled in the spotlight. The evidence was overwhelming. Fingerprints linking him to multiple murders and assaults, ballistics connecting guns of his to the crime scenes, eyewitness testimony from survivors who had seen him during attacks. He was then convicted of 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries, and Ramirez was sentenced to death in the gas chamber. He reportedly smirked at the sentence, quote, "No big deal. Death always comes with the territory," end quote. Ramirez spent the rest of his life on death row at San Quentin, dying in 2013 from cancer before execution. He never expressed remorse, remaining a figure of morbid fascination. Idolized by some and reviled by others. The city of Los Angeles, however, carried scars long after his death. Families of victims dealt with permanent trauma. Neighborhoods rebuilt under a sense of hypervigilance, and the media learned the power and responsibility of covering serial crime. Psychologists later analyzed Ramirez as a case study in chaos and thrill-seeking behavior, a man who embodied randomness in a world craving patterns. He did not strike for revenge, money, or ideology. He struck for the exhilaration of fear itself. The Night Stalker's legacy remains a warning. Terror does not announce itself. It can strike silently in the homes of the unsuspecting, leaving lives forever altered. Los Angeles remembers that summer not as a season of sun, but as the season of fear.